Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode. See, I remembered it now of Making an Impact with myself and Cody. I keep forgetting. Sorry, Cody. How are
Hey,
you today?
you did better than I do most weeks, so
I'll take the
at,
victory.
at least you had it almost down as to which side I'm on. I'm doing all right. I'm battling a little bit of a cold here, struggling to keep my voice straight, so I may sound a little different and may have a little bit of a cracking voice tonight, but we're going to try and get through this the same way that Vegas managed to get through Impact.
Well, we'll see how that goes. I figured we would start since we've been talking about the X Division tournament. I figured we'll start with a little bit, or the only I don't know if it was the only match because I skipped around it first just to be able to catch up. For before the Impact, which had Laredo Kid versus Toulouse for the in the tournament. I liked the match. It was pretty well done for me, at least. I feel like it was a lot of Laredo Kid taking control over the beginning of it, so I wasn't sure if, who was going to win it. But I like how towards like the middle of it, I feel like there was a good back and forth between them afterwards, and having Black Tourists win it. So I thought that was a pretty interesting start to the tournament so far. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of back and forth. I liked the open because, as I think it was Hannafin said, that you wouldn't really expect a technical showcase out of these two, but they put on kind of a technical exhibition to start the match, and then really went into more of the high flying X Division antics that we expect and we're used to in those kinds of matches, especially kind of a kickoff match to get the show going and get the crowd into it. Lots of back and forth, lots of high spots. Laredo had the one high spot where off the top rope, I swear it was like a 1080. He spun in that corkscrew down
Right?
onto Bruce.
That
And
was unreal.
the Hurricane Rana off the apron too, where it almost looked like
Mhm.
Laredo smoked his head off the apron on the way down. Lots of crazy stuff, and then the finish was just wild.
Yeah, I don't know what to call that spinning one that he did towards the end. I thought that was pretty interesting when he did it. I love the visual of it though, because I think about it this way. I would never be able to do that. So it's interesting when you think about it visually, and when they show the replay, it's like so wild to watch it. I love probably one of my favorite parts were those two parts of the match too. I feel like Rocky really showed up in this match more than anything, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think both of them really showed up. Laredo's been doing a lot, and Laredo was definitely involved in a lot of Trey Miguel's title reign, even though he wasn't ever really a top contender. He was always showing up. Toulouse has kind of been hovering in the middle of that X Division pack. He's always been involved in a lot of the goings on in the opening matches and stuff, but he hasn't really had this opportunity to shine in a one-on-one space in a while. Obviously, it's not a big space being on BTI still, but ultimately it is a tournament match, and people will still tune in, and they did show the ending of the match during the main broadcast. But that, like I said, the ending sequence there, you had Laredo going off on him. Actually, Black Truce going off first. I don't even think Tom and Matt knew what to call the move that Toulouse hit off the top, which was like a gorilla press Michinoku. Like he landed on his feet, but Laredo Kid definitely didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
And then got him up in something that looked like a reverse torture rack, but Laredo rolled out of it into a crucifix bomb, a nasty looking poison rana, and then the 450 from Laredo for two, and then Toulouse caught Laredo going back to the top rope again, managed to land something that looked like a sit out DDT. I feel like there's a lady that we should be remembering hit something similar as a finishing move, but I can't think of who it is. And then his Powerball finisher for the win.
Yeah. Before we keep going, I do want to thank I have Paris, Mighty Joe, Corporate Joe, and we have Mel in the chat here joining us so far. So thank you for sticking with us, guys. First, we open with a recap for what happened last week. I thought it was interesting, though, on this part of it. We have the Kingdom with Scott D'Amore backstage. And to think, like, this happened very quickly and just at the beginning of the broadcast, like, here, get out of the way and let's go. They're just talking to him about the situation that they went through last week. And I think they say Vince is in the hospital and I don't know what else happened. And other mess that happened last week with the Honor No More. But he ends his, like, Yeah, I have a solution for all this. I just you're both fired, and I expected more out of that. Being like the kingdom has been really like highlighted in recent months in Impact, so I just didn't think like just a backstage is like you're fired and you're gone, and that was it, was the end of it. So that was surprising to me. How did you feel about that?
I mean, I know we closed last week's show expecting that they were just going to be written off after the attack by PCOs, so it was definitely interesting to see that they actually cut this segment backstage. I did get a good chuckle out of how the back and forth went, where Taven and Bennett were blaming D'Amore for putting them in that position to lose their titles and to be attacked and all of that stuff. And D'Amore kind of played almost like a pronoun kind of game with it, where he's like, I promise I won't put you in that situation again. I'm not going to put you in that situation again. Here, let's shake on it. Let's hug it out. You're not going to be in that situation ever again because you're fired.
Yeah.
And just playing off on that, it was a cute little funny segment and something you'd fully expect from Bennett and Taven in a way to write themselves off, to do it in kind of a humorous manner like that, where they're the bumbling idiots who don't realize what D'Amore is saying until he spells it out for them.
Yeah, and the way he just told them, just like pack up your stuff and just go. And I think like Maria wasn't part of it either as well. I just like just the both of them backstage and just something kind of. I feel like it was pretty quickly done. So I didn't expect it to be that fast when it happened. Next up after that, we had part of the X Division tournament too is Trey Miguel versus Alan Angels. I really enjoyed the match. And I thought about it, and I like that they highlighted a lot on commentaries that they kept saying that how Alan just had scouted a lot of Trey's moves, as if he had studied him before the match happened. But even then, he did not go away with the victory. We had Trey winning the match and moving forward in the tournament, which I liked better because I don't know if Alan's actually signed with them, and I feel like Trey has been a staple of the X Division. So how do you have him lose just in the first round of it? It wouldn't make sense to me, so I'm glad he did win the match. But yeah, I like the back and forth between these two and how they kept showing that just like little parts when you think like Trey has it, then here comes Alan, and he had it scouted and he just moved out of the way to avoid what was happening. So I thought it was pretty interesting. He did it like a couple occasions during the match. What did you think about overall?
Yeah, I also had noted that I thought it was a really good back and forth and a solid match between them. I went into it not actually expecting that Alan Angels had a chance to win it. I fully expected that this was Trey Miguel's, just kind of a showcase for him leading up to the next round. But at the same time, Alan managed to win me over in a couple different points in this match. The big one was when he kicked out of the Meteora. You know, even though he had spent the whole match, he'd scouted Trey, he'd managed to reverse and counter and avoid a lot of stuff. He still got caught by the Meteora, but managed to kick out. And that was a big spot where I expected, like, okay, this is it. This is, Trey has it. Then he kicked out and he immediately went into a submission where they made a big point of bringing up, Alan Angels, like, very rarely uses submission moves. And now he's got Trey Miguel caught in one, and it was right in the center of the ring and looked like a pretty painful submission hold he had him in there. That I thought, oh, wow, like maybe he is going to win it. Ultimately, he didn't. It came back around and Trey took the win. This tournament's kind of playing out similar to how I expected, although I didn't expect Taurus to get it over Laredo. I do expect that this first round is very much just a showcase match for some of these talents, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty in the next round.
I feel like this is more of a question for you, but thank you, Joe. Stupid question. It's not a stupid question, okay? Don't say that. I haven't watched Impact in quite a while, and what's the best way to watch it here in Ontario? Your turn.
If you have cable TV, Joe, there's the Fight Network that I have through my cable provider. You can get the YouTube premium subscription, though, and watch it the same way Astrid is on YouTube right now. It starts at half an hour after the regular kickoff, so it would be 8:30 your time. Or you can Impact Plus app for a monthly subscription and watch it the next day.
Yeah, I realized I got used to the 8 p.m. when it comes to Impact. And when I come home, I realized when I come to my iPad that it doesn't start at 8:30, so I'm still not used to it. But today, I had it scouted beforehand. So yes, it starts at 8:30 on the YouTube app, and it's commercial free. Like the only commercials, like basically their recaps or like anything concerning the pay-per-views. So I feel like it's a lot easier to watch it. And I end up catching up to Cody at the end, who's watching it that way too. Bobby, good evening. I just got recording a show. How are you both doing? Yeah, sounds like I see you're very busy, guys. Since everything started with OLE, so I like seeing you busy now more than anything. Well, I guess Cody can answer how he's doing.
I don't know. You keep seeing me going off here, and I'm coughing up a storm and just trying to keep my voice alive to get through the show with you.
Yeah, we got it. We're almost there. um, so this up after this, we had Ace Austin and Chris Bay backstage, and they're just looking for Bully right after what happened last week. They find Bully and Dreamer, and they just talk about the attack. And one thing that I was telling Cody that was interesting, I don't know if it was something that Ace missed or something that we weren't sure entirely, but he tells Bully, like, you're the one that jumped me from the locker room. And I keep thinking, sweetheart, when we got the video, you were already in the parking lot on the ground. So we didn't see nothing in the locker room, nothing whatsoever. So I wonder if he went from the locker room. How far is the locker room to the parking lot? I don't know what happened there, or if he just decided just to say whatever came to his mind. But it didn't go in continuity with the story so far, which I thought was interesting. And he said, well, Bully, if it wasn't you, they'd tell me who. And he just, but no hesitation, just Moose. It was Moose. Don't worry, like, don't stop looking because it was him. So I thought that was also an interesting point of it, that he just decided to point the finger right away and didn't care.
Well, I mean, he didn't point it straight up. What I caught from that was like, well, could have been Moose. Like, why aren't you looking at Moose? Like, it could have been him too. So just trying to deflect on somebody else who's unknown and owning up to being a scumbag. And I mean, Moose was the one that showed up backstage, kind of pointing the finger at him after the match last week too, saying, "Hey, Bully, why'd you attack Ace like that?" Like, it's all kind of playing into the story. I wonder from this though, like, is that where we're headed with Bully? The call your shot that he's got, is this going to lead up to him and Moose having a match here? And that's how they're going to keep Bully occupied until they're ready to cash in that call your shot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I feel like Josh was saying later on in the show, I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on at the same time. So that's why, yeah, thinking back of like that part with Moose, I think it seems like they're heading that route to kind of keep him busy for a little bit until maybe in this way, when he defeats Moose and we get the video package telling us who it really did, or the person revealing themselves, perhaps. So that's what I'm thinking will be the conclusion about this. And look at here, Miss Mel. Oh my God, I'm recording almost every day of the next 5 days. Look at you. You beat me. Is that Mel week now? Huh? Is that what it is? Next up we have, I keep saying VXT because I can't say Vexed for some reason, but you have it now. And Gisele backstage. They keep talking about who they're facing later on, who's Taylor Wilde, Jordynne Grace, and Mickie James in the main event. And I like how Gisele points out, she's like, it's okay, we've beaten all of them, so we're fine. And I like how we end up with Chelsea just saying, you know, we're just focusing on Mickie because we're going to say goodbye to Mickie James tonight. And I like how they all went to like, goodbye, Mickie James kind of thing. Did you have any thoughts about that part?
Yeah, I liked kind of the tease that we got out of this, that you have Chelsea and Deonna. They get, I think it was Gisele brought it up in the first place, or one of them mentioning that Mickie said her last loss is going to be her last loss. So that includes this. If we beat her tonight, she's done. And Deonna and Chelsea really focused in on that. Like, oh my God, yeah. Let's beat her tonight, and then we don't have to worry about her ever again. Let's focus on her. And Giselle's the one who's like, we could also beat Jordynne to kind of get into the title picture. And Deonna and Chelsea both kind of stop and look at her and are like, no, we're focused on Mickie tonight. We'll worry about Jordynne later. Yeah. And it was some nice foreshadowing too, that Giselle's more focused on the title, doesn't so much care about Mickie.
Yeah, I feel like for me, it felt like there was a kind of like a ranking to it. You said, we're going to focus on Mickie first and then everybody else. But then for Gisele, it was more like, which one do I pick? And then she ended up going more like, I'm going to go towards like Jordynne more. But she played it off with the girls of like, I'm going with Mickie, even though you could kind of see like she didn't agree necessarily with it. Right after this, we got Tasha. She was with Savannah versus Rachel Shield. I didn't like how her last name sounds a lot like Tasha's. Especially when they say it on screen, it's like Tasha Steeles and then Rachel Shields. Why? You could just call it Rachel. It just sounds weird. You almost sound like you're making them siblings on TV, but that sounded weird to me. I liked how in this match we saw Tasha being that that focus in this match. She came out of it, the bell rang, just kicked the heck out of her like so quickly, which I didn't expect to. And it just makes me wonder about her direction, because they talk about her being champion before, but so far they haven't really connected her to Jordynne at the moment. But I like how she's like, oh, I'm better than this. She's like, you're bringing me this person when I can just beat somebody who's better than this girl. And she basically just stalked her like a prey and beat her up, and then with the help of Savannah as well. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. It was something pretty quickly, but I feel like I know they're trying to build her up towards Jordynne as well, to be going against her soon. But I thought like the structure of it was interesting. Hey, Papa Smokes, thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, it was interesting for sure. Something I wasn't expecting, something you don't see. You see the no-name talent in the ring, the star come out to their music, making a big scene. You hit the two really big moves. You're like, okay, quick squash match. But she doesn't go for the pin.
Yeah.
She rolls out of the ring. She grabs herself a microphone. She comes back in. And I had to quote it because it was actually quite humorous.
Yeah.
Tasha grabs the mic and she says, I'm too good to be in the ring with that regular, degular, schmegular, dirty Diana.
All I got from that was regular dirty Diana. I couldn't pinpoint everything, so I'm glad you were able to.
And then, still without pinning her, she brings Savannah in and tells Savannah to destroy Rochelle for her, which, as soon as Savannah puts hands on Rochelle, results in a DQ. So technically, Rochelle Shield now has her first win in Impact Wrestling, and Tasha Steelz has a loss to a no-name person. I'm going to throw this out there, though, because I did write down what's next for the Boricua Badass, and I don't recall, but I don't believe Tasha was somebody that actually got put on Masha's hit list through the summer, correct?
Not that I remember, at least.
So building her up to be a badass again is kind of a smart way if that's why we're holding off on Masha coming back. Masha's kind of down on the dumps or whatever after her loss to Jordynne and hasn't been seen. How good of a match would it be if we get Masha Slamovich coming back and just attacking, and then we get Masha and Savannah, and we get Masha and Tasha?
Yeah, that could be, because I like I was mentioning to you, I thought it was pretty odd that after a pay-per-view we haven't seen Masha, and who else we said that was missing as well. After the pay-per-view happening, like Killer Kelly was the other one after the recent start with Tasha. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well, that they have been off TV for like a week or two, perhaps maybe 3 at this point. So
yeah, the Knockouts division definitely seems like it's going through a little bit of a shift right now, and they have to get everybody in their places. And I think the 6 knockout match at the end of the night tonight is kind of a definite point that's just holding up the movement of everything else, because they've got a lot of different stories in motion. But yeah, we haven't seen Masha since Bound for Glory. We haven't seen Killer Kelly since the episode after that, and we haven't seen Taya Valkyrie, Rosemary, or Jessica since then either. So definitely a lot of knockouts on the roster that are still just kind of sitting back waiting for their stories to come out.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Joe's comment. FYU, two an awesome duo on the show, and I'm just not saying that because I know you laugh out loud. Oh, joking aside, keep up the great work, both of you. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Joe. Always appreciated.
And then next up, I had Rhino and Heath backstage. This looks like it was right after their victory, it seems. And then Machine Guns just meeting them backstage and asking them about the title match. They promised, like you told us, if you were winning the match, we'll be the next one up. And I like how, obviously, as baby faces, we have like Heath and Rhino being like, it's okay, just go to management and ask for it. And if you ask for it, it's official, then, we'll make it happen. But they kept insisting like them going to management more than anything. So we have Sabin and Shelley just going to management to ask for that match coming up. And then I think it was right after that, based on my stream at least, the Machine Guns were in the management office, and then they have the major players, so Cardona and Myers, right at the door and said, do not knock on that door. Like, we're here. And it's like, no, we were here first. But they both teams kind of struggle of like, who wants to open the door and knock on the door, back and forth there. And they keep fighting until Scott D'Amore comes out, and it's just at that point of like, okay, you want a match, it's you and you, but it's not the way you expect it to be. So he picked Cardona and Shelley to have the match tonight. Any thoughts you had overall about those two segments?
Yeah, I like that they keep the long-term storytelling going there, because we did have that situation where Motor City Machine Guns were going to talk to Scott and got cut off by Heath and Rhino at Scott D'Amore's door, which led to Heath and Rhino getting the title match and now winning. So it's like, okay, well, you told us if you won that, we'd be able to step up. And they're like, okay, we'll go talk to Scott. And yet again, the Motor City Machine Guns get beat to Scott D'Amore's door by somebody else, this time by Myers and Cardona. But I did really enjoy. So there was a commercial break in between. So when Motor City Machine Guns walked off, you had Heath and Rhino, and you had Heath there acting almost like a school kid, being like, "I can't wait for this match. No, really, I can't wait for this match. I'm so excited. I want this match to happen." And then you come back from the break, and you have the screaming match that happened between the major players and the Motor City Machine Guns, and Scott D'Amore just comes out like, "Enough. You and you tonight, go."
Yep.
and set it up, and kind of confusing in situations like that when you put like a one-on-one, but I get Scott D'Amore just being like, you know what, I'm gonna make something happen, but I'm not gonna do what you want me to make happen.
I like it. He just picked the person from each corner that he saw first, and just like, Cardona, Shelley, here, you go, bye, and that's it. It's just like, here, I solved it for the moment. It's just like kind of like a band-aid on that patch just now. I wanted to go Barry's comment. When I saw Masha with red hair and dressed like she was a Bound for Glory, I did wonder if you might see her tag with Kelly.
You know what? That's a great idea. With Killer Kelly's issues she's already having with Tasha and Savannah, but Tasha and Savannah versus Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich would probably be an insane tag team knockouts match.
That's a good one, though. I didn't think about that, to be honest. Yeah, and thank you, Barry, for stopping by. And as a result of the segment later on, we have Chris Bay versus Dreamer. One thing that I thought was pretty funny when they mentioned in comments is like they said Dreamer has been competing for 33 years, which is longer than how long Chris Bay has been alive. So I think it's pretty interesting when they pointed that out. Yeah, and another thing that they pointed out to it is kind of what I was mentioning not too long ago when when the Ace Austin attack happened. They said Bullet Club is no stranger to controversy, and I said, "Yeah, sir, very true." But we had in the middle of the match, Smooth come down, and he just swept Bay off his feet by the apron, and then he just kind of moved. So Bay really thought that Bully did it. And I was telling Cody, I noticed that Moose kept arguing with Bully, but he kept pointing like back a little bit. So I thought like I was kind of looking at the direction he was pointing at, and I thought maybe they're going to play a video from the attack or something similar to that effect. So I kept looking back, and it's like nothing's happening. Like, what the heck are you pointing at? What are you getting at? I was confused about that part of it. But yeah, we had at the end just Bay win the match, and it was just interesting to see that involvement there for Moose, and like it just alludes to what you said a little bit ago about him and Bully Ray for the moment, and just the Dreamer having Bully Ray's back even with everything that's happening. So I'm still keeping, like you said, Dreamer off my suspect list for the moment, and Moose still just in case, because you never know. But what did you think about it?
This suspect list is growing for sure.
Yeah.
Ace Austin starting out in that opening segment where Ace mentioned he was attacked in the locker room, but we found him in the parking lot. Like, okay, did you misspeak? Or is this actually a clue? Like, I feel like Sherlock Holmes here. Am I supposed to be taking down notes and finding the suspect and like solving this mystery as we go? We've got Moose, we've got Dreamer. I mean, technically Bully is suspect number one, but I believe he's at the bottom of my list just because they're trying to make him at the top of the list. You've also got Chris Bayes still there. You got Juice Robinson still there. There's lots of possible suspects in this, and I mean, we haven't even considered the fact that Macklin appears like he's on a rampage right now and could have just attacked anybody for any reason. The match played out really well. I really enjoy that these matches, like Dreamer isn't somebody at his age that can go out and put on a barn burner by any means, but he can put on a story.
Mm-hmm.
Dreamer absolutely can go out at his age in his 50s, and so can Bully Ray, and they can tell me a story in the ring, even with the most generic and basic match, and they can still take the bumps for a guy like Chris Bay, who has the high-flying, high-octane offense to hit things like springboard moonsaults and, mid-rope lionsaults and stuff like that. So it's an entertaining story to watch play out. I hope we get a little bit more progression on it over the next little bit here before we actually reach Overdrive, that it doesn't draw all the way out until we actually get Bully back in Josh's face again or anything. I think this is a story that we have to get a conclusion to before we get back to Josh, or at least get some serious progression on where Bully stands. Is Dreamer really in his corner, or is Dreamer actually like playing a double agent here on this?
Plus, I'm gonna add up for me. I'm gonna put an unknown in the suspect list, because I feel like, what if it's somebody that we haven't seen on screen either, and we're just like we're focusing on the people we see on screen, and it's somebody that wasn't, like, we didn't see part of it. So that's why I'm keeping like an unknown kind of somebody there, because we never know what impact if they will put something like that. But I like how it was interesting with your timing that Barry said this. I have nothing against Dreamer, but he's not good in the ring anymore. Yeah, he did feel slow at times, especially when he was getting up from the moves. But it just, those moments that, like they pointed out, he's been wrestling for so long. I just don't expect him to be at the same speed as Bay, for example. So.
No, and that's why I can appreciate the fact that he can still tell me a story. He doesn't have to be excellent in the ring physically to tell me a story just in his facial expressions and in the actual discussion going on, especially with guys like Matt Ray Wolt and Tom Hannafin on commentary, expanding that story for us, that the commentary teams can have all the impact in a world in telling me a story. It's no different than watching like Jushin Thunder Liger before he retired last year, or somebody like Minoru Suzuki right now go in the ring, that they're older, they can't carry a match as fully and as physically as a lot of these younger high activity guys can, but they can still go out there and give you a highly entertaining match without having to be that highly athletic individual.
Yeah. I also wanted to go to this comment. D'Lo Brown leading a version of Aces and Aces looking for revenge on the leader who abandoned them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. That's it. I feel like it's all about him. So, yeah.
There's a lot of people that Bully Ray has wronged, and as they keep pointing out to us, the long list of all the people he's wronged through the years, that it very well could be somebody who's yet to show on screen as somebody that he's wronged coming back to get him. It also very much could be a situation where he's actually doing this. Yeah, or, as I mentioned last week, it could be Rikishi.
Okay. No, we're not doing this again. No. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep a person like, oh yeah, you're very true, Mel. Suzuki is still also very much gonna kick your ass. Yeah, very accurate.
Absolutely. He will just slap your chest off if he needs to. He doesn't need to go out and do 450 splashes out of the corner and tope suicidas. He will just slap your teeth out.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep like a couple spots like empty with the number on it, just with a question mark, because I feel like there could be other people. And like you said, I feel with Impact, it's all about history. We can look back of, like we said, other people that Bully Ray wrong. How many people that list is humongous. Do I want to go list them? Not really. So that's why I'm gonna put like a couple of spots with like an empty space, but with a number, because I feel like somebody's pending here. So I feel like there's some other spot there to the puzzle. So we'll see. Next up, we have the promo from Aussie Open. They're just saying that they're aiming for the tag title, so that they want to go for the big dogs in the company, and they have an open challenge for it next week. I was down to the point. I just wonder if they were going to pick not the tag team champions, because you don't want the tag team champions to get pinned right away or anything like that. Plus, it's Heath and Rhino, so it's like you don't want that happening right now when they just want them. But I just like, who would they pick for this? And we got the answer a little bit later on. But did you have any thoughts overall about that promo?
It was just kind of a bland way to reintroduce them, just backstage being like, we're back in Impact. We said that we were coming for the tag titles. We lost last time we were here. We're coming back to prove that was a once off. We're coming for, we're looking for the biggest dogs in the fight to pick a fight with, whoever that may be. We're issuing it a challenge for next week for you to step up. And I could have done for more, but I get some of these situations that Impact's handling right now, where they're bringing these talent in for kind of one-off recording stints in certain towns where they don't have a lot of time to let these stories flourish over a long time.
Yeah, and just made me wonder with the schedule, it might be something that they just recorded even after their match, because I don't think they were part of these tapings at all so far from what I remember. But I figured it was something that could just quickly record after the match happened, or before their match happened when they taped it.
Yeah, tonight's show was a lot of the Vegas stuff that was actually just taped this past weekend, which was the show that I think they actually had the match at. So it's possible they had this promo cut where it did actually show in the audience early in the night leading up to the actual match itself too.
Mm-hmm. And then after this, we had Bully Ray and Dreamer backstage, and it's that back and forth again of like Bully getting frustrated because everybody keeps blaming him for the attack, even though he said he didn't do it. I'm not saying that he didn't, just in case. But he said he's like, I'm at a point that he says, I don't know if you would trust me, pointing that to Dreamer. And when he says, well, if Moose's getting involved now, you gotta kind of take care of him at that moment. It goes back to that point you mentioned, that it seems like Moose is that person to keep Bully Ray kind of busy for the moment until he's ready for Josh in that match when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you're keeping count at this point, crowd, but that's not one, not two, but 3 Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer segments in the first hour of tonight's show. It's a little bit much at this point. I'm really looking for this to make a lot of steps forward. I did like the little wrinkle that was added here, though, of Bully slowly losing his temper. Mm-hmm. And it kind of introduces that next question now of, could this be where we're heading? Are we going to see all of these accusations slowly build up and get to Bully that he actually does lose his temper and do exactly what they said he was going to do all along?
Yeah, is it like it's going to be at that moment that when he does come and just burst out, that people are going to think you did really do it? Because look at you now, and use that as kind of like the evidence and support to the earlier point of like trusting him. But it's interesting to see like his reaction and the way he fired up. And it's like, I feel like this could have been maybe kind of mixed up with the one at the beginning and just made it that one segment and then the match. It's like, I know he's a focus to it, but it's like, why have 3 segments with Dreamer and Bully Ray in one night? We can just make it 2 at least, or even 1, to be honest. So I feel like they could have cut that end of it, at least for my end of it when I saw it.
Yeah, I think like each one added a little bit of a new wrinkle. So you had the first one there where Dreamer kind of steps up and defends Bully and ends up getting called out by Bay for, having to talk for Bully and not letting Bully talk for himself. You have the match itself, which introduces the Moose wrinkle and actually brings Moose out and like, I heard you throw my name out backstage. Like, what are you doing? You're a scumbag too. You're a piece of crap. You were the one that actually attacked him. And then you go to the next one where it's Bully kind of slowly starting to lose it a little bit and Dreamer trying to ring him back in again. That it is slow progression, and I'm not necessarily opposed to the segments, but I feel like it also could be something that you let that segment kind of wait a little bit. Even if you just later on in the night, we didn't need the 3 within an hour. You could have run this segment a little later in the night, or you could have had the match a little bit later in the night after the opening segment. It just felt like they were really in quick succession there too, which really just kind of added to that taking notice of how quickly everything was all Bully Ray.
Yeah, I feel like they could have let it breathe throughout the show, if anything. But yeah, I feel like you could easily extend that end of it, or even leave us just like hanging there. And then next week he talks about involving Moose, for example, because we're still going to see him next week anyway. He's going to be an Impact anyway, so it just doesn't surprise me. But I feel like they could have cut the end of it and make it like stretch it out a little bit longer. Whether they did it later on in the show or maybe that next week, for example. After this is when we had Cardona with Brian Myers, and then versus Shelley with Sabin. I feel like this match, I'm not going to say it was like the best match ever or like a great match tonight, but I feel it was more like the storytelling within the 2 teams that we had involved here, and that's what they gave us more than anything, of like them looking out for their partner, especially Myers with the championship. And I thought it was interesting when Shelley does the DDT on the championship to Cardona, in that end of it. And I think, if I'm mistaken, Brian did hit Shelley at one point as well. And so I like that end of it. And not only that, but after the match, it's just that part of like, here comes the heels beating up on the faces, and Heath and Rhino come in for the save as the faces to, have the, that partnership, like or that friendship, kind of like you kind of have with them in the Motor City Machine Guns. And I feel like it adds more to it when they're defending them after a match as well. What were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I had the same kind of note about the match itself, that the big thing I took away from this match was the ring psychology throughout. The tag team tactics in a singles match, the ref distractions, the title belt shenanigans, the roll-ups, all of the examples of heel tactics being used, but on both sides. Like, Alex Shelley wasn't opposed to taking advantage of the same things that Cardona was trying to do to him, which always makes for a kind of fun encounter when you have the face in the match kind of acting a little bit rebellious too, where they're like, well, if you're going to try it, I can try it too. You had the spot where Alex Shelley came up with the title belt and the ref fought him for it and he ended up giving it up. And then Cardona came up with it and you had Cardona getting fought for the title belt with the ref. Or when Myers slid the belt in the first place and slid it right through Cardona's legs and Shelley ends up picking it up. And then the ref gets distracted by Myers. So Shelley knocks the belt out of Cardona's hands and DDTs him onto the belt while the ref's not paying attention. Like, oh, well, it kind of happened. But all of that stuff, including Cardona jumping Shelley before the bell, like all of kind of good ring psychology tactics, and just a really good example of how to do something like that, even with a lot of the overbooking, as you might consider it in this. It still came across as a good enough match between two guys who would put on a match like that.
Yeah. Right after this, we had Rich Swann backstage with Josh, and I like how he's like, "Oh, you're killing it." I like how they compliment each other. He's like, "You're killing." He's like, "No, you're killing it," with each other. So I like that part of them there. And he that points out, he's like, "Oh, you have people coming at you from all angles. You have Bully after willing to call your shot, Gauntlet, and then you have Kazarian with the option C that he's cashing in, and we barely got an answer really from Josh when Gil Kim of all people comes out. I wasn't expecting her to come in here, but I feel like like we were talking, that's another layer to the Bully Ray thing when so many people come to Josh and just tell him to his face, don't trust him. It's like, how many times and how many people do they have to come to tell him the same thing? Is the funny aspect of it. I did like the part of it because as a heel, you don't expect Gil to say this, but she did say she learned a lot from Bully Ray. And one thing she learned about him is not to trust anybody in this industry. So that was a nice point to it. And then we had Steve Backlund just attack Josh out of nowhere. And I don't know if it was me or maybe I missed it or maybe my stream kind of jumped. But I can hear Gil just going, Steve, don't Steve, stop it. And there's like referees coming in. And then I guess Cass comes in from the safe.
It went to a commercial break there.
Okay, that's what it did. So I had like a little jump in here.
Had Steve being hauled off by security, went to commercial and came back right as Frankie showed up.
Okay, yeah, because I remember like there was a jump. I see the referees helping to separate them, and then next up I just see Kaz with Josh, and then Josh is just thanking him for. He's like, "Oh, you were not looking for a partner, but you kind of saved me here." He's like, "Oh, it's okay, just because I want you to face me in that match. Like I don't want anything else so like involving it." And then he just talks about the Aussie Open promo that we talked a few minutes ago, and he just says, "Well, they said they want to go for the big dogs." And you were part of a great tag team here, and I was part of a great tag team here. So I think we can just make a great tag team ourselves and just team up and just face Aussie Open next week. So it was confirmed that it is happening next week. So we have Josh and Cass versus Aussie Open. So it'll be interesting to see how they play off having the champion with his challenger teaming up next week. But like I said, just for me, that stream, it just jumped from like Steve getting like separated from Josh, and all of a sudden I have Cass just like coming here. He's like, it's okay. Like, thank you for saving me. I'm like, I don't know what I missed there. And I was kind of confused on the end of it when they cut it here. So now that you mention it, I feel like now I get the full picture.
They hauled Macklin off. And then when it came back from commercial, Gail was talking to Josh again, kind of without a mic, just kind of quietly talking. And then Frankie came in and Gail left, and it turned into Frankie and Josh talking.
Okay, that's what I thought. I knew it was weird the way they cut in that he just came. I feel like Cass came out of nowhere for me, but I thought it was odd when I first saw it. I was going to ask you how it went for you now, knowing that you have commercials and I don't.
Yeah, a couple takeaways. Gail Kim, where she says, Bully taught me not to trust anybody in this industry.
Mm.
When we're literally sitting here talking about a story of Bully trusting Tommy without a shadow of a doubt, and Tommy trusting Bully without a shadow of a doubt, really kind of fed into my theory that Tommy is the one that we should be paying attention to here. And then Frankie talking about how he's protecting his interests. It was he didn't come to save Josh for Josh. He came to save Josh to keep his title match at Overdrive alive. He doesn't want anybody taking Josh out of action before he gets a chance to win his title. But yeah, the tag team match coming up is going to be great. A great international tag team in Aussie Open going against two, how did Josh put it? Two halves of two of the greatest tag teams in history.
Yep, I like the way he pointed it out. But yeah, I thought it was interesting as well the way he said it. But yeah, I think it'll make me wonder if it'll be one of those like they cannot coexist, because I feel like Impact doesn't really do that much. Not that much, but just like it's not the same as WWE when they do that kind of storyline. But at the same time, do we get like maybe Aussie Open pinning Cass, or do we get Josh or Cass pinning Aussie Open? That'll be another loss for them in Impact Wrestling as well.
Yeah, I mean, you bring it up that way. It's definitely lined up in such a way that either you have to go to a no finish or you have to have a DQ of some kind, right? Yeah. You have to have either just somebody's going to come down. Maybe Macklin comes down and interrupts and destroys the match and makes it, no contest, right as somebody was about to pin the other, or a tag team comes out and distracts Aussie Open, a heel team or somebody that doesn't appreciate them being back. Something along those lines. I don't know how you pin a team that's coming in trying to say that they want a title match, and you definitely can't pin the champion or the number one contender with a tag team that isn't even in the world title picture, really. So it'll be interesting to see it play out. I think they'll still put on an absolutely killer match with those four people, but the finish is definitely something I'll be paying attention to.
Yep. Hopefully I said this correct, is Raj Singh versus Joe Hendry. Well, your favorite person in the world.
His name, man. He appears.
I thought it was funny when he just does the rhythm to the song. He just slaps his bald head when he's doing it at the beginning of the match. I just love how Joe really plays with the crowd. It's just like he's either clapping for the song or just doing the movement for people to kind of sing the song while he's wrestling, or even he kind of does a little bit of the song and people continue singing it while he's wrestling as well.
It's a note I made too, that I love how simple it is for him to get the crowd going. All he had to say was, "I believe in Joe Hendry," and the crowd just starts waving and going with him. It was so fun, and it's every time he's out there, the crowd seems to be so into him.
Yeah. And I liked how he said, I believe Joe said something about he started singing the song and Raj just told him, "I don't believe in you, stupid idiot." And I just thinking about Jericho at this point. And I liked also how they did this the same way they did it last week, when he's like, "Oh, I don't believe in Joe Hendry," and from the angle we get him appearing from behind them with a smile on his face, and it makes you think about the song as well when this is happening. And just we obviously have Joe winning the match, but like I said, I like the energy that he brings to the ring and how easily he can control the crowd with just doing little movements like just his hands or the clapping or the singing and get them involved in his match somehow, which I liked about him.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple names here, but I did take that same note, that when Raj got a little bit of offense in and took Joe down, he did kind of the same thing as Hotch did last week, where he goes out and yelling at the crowd, like, "I don't believe in anybody, especially not Joe Hendry." And the framing of the camera was perfect. Because last week we actually saw him come up from behind the shoulder of Hotch. This week he was like right behind Raj's head and kind of peeks out the side. And the way the camera had that perfectly framed, that you didn't realize he was standing right behind him until he popped his head out the side. I loved it. It's a perfect way to just stay consistent with the whole story of his character, of the song, of his personality, of his charisma. we got move names this week though. So we had one which was like a gorilla press where he throwed the guy in front of him. They called it the trust fall. And his actual finisher, which as last week I called it, is kind of like a choke slam where instead of the throat, he grabs him by the chest and lifts him right from the diaphragm. They called that the standing ovation.
Yeah, when you pointed that out, that was pretty genius when they named those moves like that. And it just, after you mentioned it, I started like watching out for his finisher. Holy crap, it is really well done. I love that the way he does it, the angle, and the way he just stays there for that moment, looks at the camera before he does, and just slamming the person right on the mat. And it's like the timing of it and the camera angle, it does it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It looks so crisp and clean. Again, this week, everything he did, all of his moves looked really clean in the ring. I'm interested to see how his offense will adjust, though, if he ends up taking on somebody much bigger than himself. Obviously, he's not going to be able to hit a trust fall on somebody like I don't know, even a Rhino would be pretty impressive for him to hit that on, but like a Big Joe Doring, he wouldn't be able to hit it on, or a Luke Gallows, he wouldn't have been able to hit it on. So we'll see how he adjusts his offense when he has to face somebody not quite the size of a Raj Singh or a Jason Hotch that he can actually get up over his head.
Yep. After this, we had the backstage segment with it was EY and Diener, and they were just talking to somebody over the shadows, and the angle of it doesn't really give you an idea that there's somebody there. They almost seem like they're talking to themselves, but they're not really. They're right beside each other, so just like it was kind of awkward to see at first. And just EY telling the person like, "I love the violence, I live for it, and I crave it, and I hope your eyes are open." But like I said, the angle itself, they don't really tell you. They don't really show you who they're talking to. I did see the spoiler for it, which is a different story. I'm not going to say who it is until the person shows on screen, but it's just like, if I hadn't seen the spoiler, I would have been wondering what the heck happened there, because the angle didn't help me. I feel like they could have made it an angle where you could see kind of like the shadow of the person without really seeing who the person is, to kind of give you that idea of like, oh, they're talking to somebody. Because right now, just like Dino, just like nodding and listening to EY, but they're just like right next to each other, and that's all you see. So it doesn't really give you an insight to what's happening there, for at least from my point of view.
Yeah, from my perspective, it just looked like I wouldn't put it against VBD to have a framing like this, but it looked like he was talking at one camera and we were kind of spying from a different camera off to the other side. I didn't know anything about a person until you mentioned it. I haven't peeked ahead at anything. I'm trying to stay legit to Impact as it is. The only thing I'm catching is like match announcements for the actual tapings of the shows. And even then, Aussie Open was announced against Josh and Frankie last week, and I still forgot who Aussie Open was facing until Josh and Frankie announced it tonight, because my brain just kind of decided not to retain that information. It wasn't something I wanted to remember on the spot, because I knew I'd remember it when it actually came around. But on this VBD stuff, it was a case where I just thought we were kind of peeking in on a promo, but they weren't actually looking at the camera that we were watching from, just a kind of a unique angling of stuff. So to hear that there's actually somebody else there, I mean, it makes sense. The framing makes a lot more sense now, but either way, it was an interesting promo. And Eric just talking about how like violent by design, and he lives violence. Like Sammy wants to bring the violence and wants to be violent, and the Callahan death machine, and EY says, I live for the violence and I'll show you next week, which we later get confirmed is happening on next week's show.
Yep. After this, just had a quick little segment of Mickie, Taylor, and Jordynne just getting ready for their match, and just hyping each other up a little bit. And we head on to the interview with Eddie. Well, I like the points that he brought up, and they just ask him about Honor No More, and just one of those things that, for me, watching this, I feel like Honor No More being highlighted the way they were the past few months. I just feel like the way they ended it could have worked out better. I know the timing of it wasn't really the best, but it just like to end it with just, I guess, this interview and him saying kind of like it's over now. He just kind of gives an update. He says like, I think it's said, if I'm not mistaken, Vincent is in the hospital, and then the Kingdom got fired, and I think he said Kenny doesn't answer his calls, so it's like basically it's done. And he's like, this was what their mission was. It's like, if our mission was allowed to succeed, there will be no fiction between Alicia and himself. because he said that there has been no honor in in wrestling for a very long time. And it's just another thing to point out, and it's something to what happened in continuity from last week. He doesn't really point out his mistakes, though. It's just like he keeps talking about what everybody did wrong, but it doesn't really say about his fault as a leader in the group in there as a whole. And then at the end, he just closes it out with saying, PCO's not a monster. He's a bitch. And he's going to pay for it. And even in commentary, we had them point out and just he's not taking the fault as the leader of the group. He just like listing what everybody did and what happened and like updating you on everybody, but he's not taking responsibility though.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie is definitely playing that part where he's the victim. He's the one that's blaming everybody else. It's never his fault. He's not doing anything wrong. Honor no more is no more. Vincent's in the hospital. Kingdom got fired. And then they ask him, well, what about Alicia? Like, how is your relationship with her? How is this affecting that? Like, honor no more is done. Like, are you guys good? And he basically just says, I'm not going to talk about that. My private life's private. Mm-hmm. What happens between me and Lish only needs to involve me and Lish. But then they asked him, knowing how the last year went, how or would you do anything different if you could go back and do it again? And even still, he's not necessarily owning up to it. He's no, I wouldn't do anything different, except Honor No More was built to succeed, but we didn't know that we had a cancer in the group. And that's where he starts going off on PCO as being the cancer and the weak link and the downfall. And the cause of all of their problems was always PCO, because PCO never bought into their belief and their system and the change they were trying to make. PCO had no honor, and he's going to make PCO pay, and rips off his microphone and storms off the set.
Yeah, just blame it on the guy who resigned on the company, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a fun match. I don't know that I want that to be a one-off match, but it's going to be a fun match for sure, because Eddie definitely can bring the violence as good as anybody else, and I'm sure we'll get an appearance from Kenny.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is I feel like it just goes back to the point that we had discussed before. Just like I felt like Kenny was almost not even part of this, and just like it's just a way of writing him off. It's just like he's not answering my calls, because his focus now should be the X Division tournament as they had him advertised. But other than that, Kenny's nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. It's like the only way we can kind of bring him up is to say he's not really talking to him at the moment. And it's like Vincent's in the hospital because he's not even here at the moment. There's no status on Vincent, and the Kingdom's gone to AEW, and then PCO is basically the only person that's just like blame it all on him then.
It's funny that you went to Kenny King, because that's not even the Kenny I was referring to.
Oh well.
I was referring to Kenny the kendo stick.
Oh gosh. And I think I already mentioned it, but we get the recap before the main event. It's going to be EY versus Sammy next week, and then we get Aussie Open versus Cass and Josh next week, and then Kenny and Mike Bailey next week. And then Yuya Uemura versus PJ Black is part of the before the Impact for the X Division tournament next week as well. I don't think I really missed anything. Did I?
I am highly going to recommend to anybody listening, watching, whether you're watching live, watching on the replay on Monday on Backbreaker Video, wherever you're catching us, if you're listening to us right now, don't miss Before the Impact match next week. Mm-hmm. It's on YouTube. It's free. Definitely check it out next week when it happens, because Yuya Uemura and PJ Black are two very talented athletes. I haven't seen PJ in a long time, but I can only expect that he's gotten better. But Yuya Uemura, I've seen in all of his Young Lion stuff. Fantastic wrestler, just getting started. This should be a killer X Division match given away for free on YouTube.
So the main event is a 6-woman tag tours Vexed and Gisele versus Mickie, Taylor, and Jordynne. Here we go. The love is felt. And then I like how they brought up the part with Gisele. They have to get back and forth with Vexed going on, even to be like, I think this is like the first match to officially have it as a team, right? Or if I'm not mistaken, am I missing something? I'm tired at this moment, so.
Vexed and Gisele?
No, it's the second time, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, because they had the one against the Death Dolls.
I did notice though. I think the first time they had kind of like matching colors in their gear, and this time they did it. It was just like Vex and then Giselle. They had a similar color, but it wasn't entirely matchy though.
They're when they came down to the ring, they all had something on that was kind of a golden color. But
Gold,
once they got
yeah.
into their actual wrestling gear and took off the entrance
Hmm.
gear, they kind of separated a little bit, and there was a little bit of a divide there.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the little pose they do in the ring with all three of them together to kind of show that them as a team there. Though I don't think they did that last time when we saw them.
No, I don't
Um,
think so.
I did like that there was also like I feel like I saw a lot of more double team moves between Chelsea and Diana versus like them with Giselle in any combination. Um, I feel like I barely saw Jordynne in this match. Maybe it was me. I feel like she wasn't in the match, like part of it for too long. I feel like I feel like there was a lot going on in these matches too. I feel like it was hard for me to keep up and had to keep rewinding it to take a couple notes. Um, but yeah, there was a part I believe. The part that the sequence here that I liked was when Mickie's kind of blowing her kisses to Chelsea, and she kind of runs her to the ropes, and then Diana sweeps her off her feet, and then we have Chelsea distracting the referee while Giselle just kicks Mickie in there in the ring. And that sequence that for some reason happens kind of often when there's like a 6 or 8 woman tag. It's like you hit somebody and you hit that person, and then you come in and hit somebody else, and that back and forth that they had towards the end there too. And it goes back to also the point that you mentioned. At one point, Giselle goes out of the ring after Chelsea directs her, and she just takes the championship and races it. And she has the Knockouts Championship all distracted with it. And then here comes Jordynne to fight her off outside for it. Um, and I felt also like for me, Taylor Wilde again was not it for me. I feel like she was slow in her parts again as well. So I wonder if it's some kind of ring rust that she has, because I feel like it just happened to her in the match as well before. But I really love the ending sequence with Mickie winning and pinning Chelsea of all people. So just gave me insight maybe about Chelsea's future there. Um, but I like the team of Jordynne, Taylor, and Mickie, and I feel like at the same time it kind of gives you like that connection. Maybe like when are we going to see Mickie and Jordynne if we do see that happening in the future?
Yeah, no, it's definitely feeling like a little bit of a foreshadow there. I also feel like the Mickie and Taylor stuff is probably still coming. Jordynne definitely, she had a smaller part. She opened the match, I believe, unless I'm mistaken. I think Jordynne opened the match. And then that team brought in Taylor, and then when they brought in Mickie, I feel is when the match really picked up. So you had Jordynne kind of kick it off, a little bit of a hot start, tagged in Taylor. It really tuckered out because Taylor just, I don't know. I don't know what it is about Taylor Wilde. I never watched a lot of her earlier stuff when she was back facing the Influence last year. I thought she had a little bit going on. This time around, she doesn't seem to be holding up with the other women in the ring around her. Whether it was Chelsea, whether it was Giselle, whether it was Diana, it just felt like she was really struggling to hit her spots, but also to set up for her opponents to hit their spots properly. When she tagged in Mickie, you really got that storytelling coming in where you had Diana and Chelsea and Giselle really trying to corner her and focus on her and keeping her locked in the ring because they really wanted so badly to get that pin on Mickie that they did everything they could. They were pinning her and pinning her and pinning her. And you had Tom pointed out at one point, or possibly it was Matt, that they just had back-to-back instances where we were 1 second away from Mickie James being sent to retirement, and really trying to sell that story. You get Mickie tags out. Jordynne got the hot tag, came in, wrecked shop, and then tagged Mickie back in. And that's where kind of Mickie went for a couple pins, got caught, got triple teamed actually, because you had Diana and Giselle cleared out Taylor and Jordynne, and all three of Vex and Giselle were in the ring alone with Mickie. That's where we got to the spot where you pointed, where Chelsea actually was sending Giselle to get the title belt to come in and attack Mickie while Diana had the ref distracted. And that's where Giselle got distracted with the title belt, ends up getting wiped out by Jordynne. Diana and Chelsea were in like halfway through a suplex on Mickie, or like a stalling suplex. Taylor knocks out Diana. Mickie hits the McDT on Chelsea coming out of that suplex for the win, the pin, and then really kind of rubbing it in her face that she just pinned her. really playing into the story here, really leaning hard into the Mickie retirement angle. I think having Mickie and Jordynne interacting on a team like this is something that's probably going to play out. I would love to see Mickie and Chelsea go, but I think there's a possibility that we may not get to see that play out. So we probably will pivot here and end up maybe with like Deonna and Gisele breaking the group apart and Chelsea being the middle piece falling out. Something along those lines. We'll get Mickie and Taylor, and then we'll see where Mickie's last rodeo tour goes from there.
Yeah. So yeah, that really wraps it up for this week's episode of Impact. Unless you had any final thoughts before we plug our stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to do this correctly and rate somebody on Twitch. We'll see.
Yeah, you can check me out right here at Cody Defoe on Twitch, on Twitter. Still not extremely active, still getting there. I am really struggling with my voice right now, so that's basically all I've got. We're here every Thursday, 8:30 my time, 8:30 Mountain Time, 10:30 Eastern Time, for making an impact, interacting, and reacting on what we've just watched on Thursday's Impact episodes. We'll be back again next week. If you can't catch us live, you can catch us on Astrid's Twitch channel. You can catch us on Astrid's YouTube channel. You can also catch us on Mondays for the replay on Backbreaker video.
Yeah, and for me, my Twitter is Astrid Pizarro. If anything, I do a Tuesday NXT show with Parrish. It's called Taking Over on OLE Podcast, our local establishment. So follow them as well. We'll be back and forth doing stuff with them very often. And after that, just here making an impact on Thursdays, and on the weekends, I do have my NXT review with Women's Wrestling Talk. And finally, this weekend, not only am I filming and recording with Mel the next episode of Ladies Wrestling Showcase, we're going to be talking about the Women's PWY 150 that just came out today. And where I'm going to be recording an interview with Billy Starks this weekend as well. So if you have any questions, you can always tell me on Twitter and just tell me what you want to ask, and I'll definitely include it. So I'm definitely excited about having Astrid ask back. Finally getting somebody on the show. I've been looking forward to doing a new episode as well. That's it.
One more closing thing before we hit the end and wish our friends good night. Who was your impact maker of the night?
I would say Mickie James for me. That's my person.
I think I'm gonna have to go back here. I'm gonna have to say Tasha. The way that squash match played out, I thought it was just gonna be a quick one-off. I think she really did come out and make an impact just in something so simple and so small, coming and going with the beat down and bringing her Savannah in to beat her opponent for her because she didn't want to. But with that is making an impact. That is our impact makers. For Astrid, I'm Cody. Good night, friends. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again next week.
Yeah, hopefully I do this right. We'll see people.